Hello, everyone. Welcome to Crow Canyon Software's webinar about moving off InfoPath or other legacy programs, but primarily InfoPath forms to better solutions. Primarily, we're going to be talking about Crow Canyon, our particular Nitro Studio. Now, before we get going, I want to mention some things about the GoToWebinar. You probably know this, but just in case, there is a question box in the webinar screen that you have, and you can enter in a question at any time, and we'll try and answer it as best we can during the webinar. We have James here with us who is going to be answering questions while we do the webinar, but if we don't get to it beforehand or there's more complex questions, then we'll answer it by email after. Important thing is that there's a communication between us, between the Crow Canyon, and understanding what you're doing and what your goals are with InfoPath replacement and timeframes and all that. So I see this as a webinar as kind of an introduction into what Crow Canyon's doing and what we have to offer in the InfoPath replacement field, and how we can help you meet your goals of moving off InfoPath. So we'll go into some PowerPoints, slides on InfoPath replacement in general, and then we'll go into some demos of tools that Crow Canyon offers to facilitate that process. I am Scott Restivo, President and CEO of Crow Canyon Software. I founded the company 22 years ago, and we've been going strong ever since. We started in the early days in the Microsoft Outlook Exchange world, then we moved it to SharePoint, and when it came out in mid-2000s, you could say, I guess 2007 or so. And we've been very strongly in the SharePoint world, and also now for the last 5-6 years in the Office 365, what they call Microsoft 365 world, and Microsoft Teams. We are a Microsoft preferred partner in their business application section. We also are California certified as a small business. Our headquarters is in California in the Bay Area. We also have an office in Rhode Island on the East Coast, and we have a group in India. So we are able to manage and work with customers all over the world in different time zones. We've been producing business applications that are out-of-the-box solutions. They implement our Nitro Studio, whether in SharePoint on-premises or SharePoint in the cloud or Microsoft Teams. There's a number of those. We're not going to be focusing on those today. We'll be focusing more on the Nitro Studio and how it replaces InfoPath and also can power up forms and workflow development in your environment. We also do AI and bot services. That's a new field, well, new over the last couple of years, but new. We're advancing into that, AI and bots, chatbots, and very interesting world, especially when you get into the Teams and Office 365 cloud-based bots, mobile bots. And we do a lot of custom solutions for people who have particular needs, whether it's in healthcare or the power industry or education or government or manufacturing. There's a lot of custom solutions that the out-of-the-box applications don't quite meet because there's particular needs in your organization. Here's a short list of the out-of-the-box applications. Well, I mean, it's pretty much the full list of the out-of-the-box applications, but we've done a number of variations of these, and also, like I said, the custom projects. A lot of information on our website about that, but that's not where our focus is today. They're certainly well worth investigating and finding out more about if you want to implement some kind of business process in the SharePoint or Office 365. But we're focusing on InfoPath replacement today. We have the Nitro Studio. Nitro Studio is a layer, you might say, a platform on top of SharePoint, also on top of Microsoft Office 365. And you can say it runs as a platform in Teams. And what it does is provide you a way to build forms, workflows, and many other capabilities inside of the SharePoint/Teams/Office 365 environment. Now, what we're going to do here is go into a brief look at the actual Nitro Studio. Right here, this is a Nitro Studio inside of an access request system. We have many, many examples of Nitro Studio being put into place, but this is just one that I tend to use a lot during our webinars. And this is the access request system. You can see that there's forms, workflows, reporting, portals, many, many components and features. And we'll dig into this a little bit later into the webinar, but just giving you kind of an overview of everything that, let's say, the wide range of capabilities that Nitro Studio offers. It's not just forms, it's not just workflows. Those are certainly very important parts of it, but it's a full range of tools for application development that is easy to use, affordable, and quite interesting. We've been working on this for a number of years and building it up more and more as we get feedback from our customers. It's very interactive with our customers and people working on projects and We have a lot of enthusiasts with Nitro Studio. It's kind of fun to work with those people and get their feedback. So they contribute in collaborative kind of development of this environment. Just to give you a quick example before we move more into the InfoPath replacement, here is a kind of simple access request system, kind of a demo for this webinar that I can play around with and make changes with and not affect anything in real life. So let me open up a form in this access request system to give you a taste of Nitro Studio, and then we'll go into the InfoPath replacement. You can see here is a form that is developed in Nitro Studio. It has actions at the top that you can define as what's going to happen. You can put buttons on here. It comes up with different ways of showing the form. There's different tabs, different sections, different tabs. I mean, there's many things going on here. This is very basic implementation of Nitro Studio. Kind of basic access request system. It's dynamic. You can parts show or don't show. I'll show you that more later when we get into it. But it's showing that inside of the Nitro Studio, if we went to the forms designer, you would see if I went to the access request list right here, very simply just go there. Now you can go in and start designing your form and adding whatever kind of components and sections and other actions and buttons and things you want to do. And here it is. This is we were looking at the display form when I showed you earlier. This is the new form. There's new edit display. So you can see that there's different tabs, there's different sections, there's different ways of showing this information in there. How you want everyone to design it using the many tools here. So this forms designer, James, is going to be giving a workshop specifically on the forms designer next week. And we also have a lot of material on our web and a lot of other webinars we have done. Of course, we'll do one-on-one demos with you. And I always like those because it's much more interactive. Can it do this? Can it do that? What about external data connections? What about this? Particular needs that you may have in your forms design that, or what you did in InfoPath or what you might want to add in. And very good to discuss those. It's very helpful to discuss those. If I just open up a new item, you can see that it looks like that form that I just was looking at there in the forms designer, and we can easily make changes in Nitro Studio with the different tabs. Things show up if I choose database, SQL, for example, it's going to show up another tab of SQL right here, information. Very simple stuff that, if I could spend the whole rest of the webinar just talking about this, and I won't, because it is not what the webinar is about, right? Where it's about forms replacement. About InfoPath replacement, InfoPath forms. Here are some examples of forms under our Nitro Studio forms showcase of things that are done in the Nitro Studio. We have many more examples, and we could put a lot more up here. I think we'll make a note here to expand our portfolio here and add more, because we keep doing more and more and interesting ones. And some of them are exactly like they need to be because the government regulations, like the W4 that we put together here. This is all in Nitro Studio. If you needed this kind of a form done like this, we can. And then you could add the workflows and everything else on it. But you see, like quite a powerful design tool right here going on that can match, particular needs of a government or regulatory form. But we also can go more freestyle and open up, any ways we want like this, building the forms that work best. So we'll go into that more, or we can talk to you more about what particular forms you need and how they should be done. And the whole goal is to make them user-friendly, intuitive, and interesting for the users to engage with so that they use them, right? So we're back to the PowerPoint right here. Okay, so let's go in here. And I want to mention that we have a whole section on our website of the InfoPath replacement. One thing, we wrote the book on it, we could say, right? We wrote the book on it. So here we go with the moving from InfoPath to Nitro Studio, and you guys are all lucky because now you can download this with no gate. You don't have to put your email address or anything in. We used to gate it, but then we said, yeah, just make it available to everybody. And it's been getting a lot of downloads, a lot of interest, and I'll cover some of this in the webinar today to show you, to highlight the features. But if you do get a chance to take a look at that, go ahead and we'll talk about it more. And you can see that we do have in our website, Nitro Studio InfoPath replacement. There's all this information, but there is quite a set of resources available here for InfoPath replacement. And we've been doing this for years. We're considered something of experts on it. I go to, well, let me say, when I used to go to conferences and SharePoint Saturdays and things like that, I'd give talks on best practices, techniques. We developed what's called the InfoPath project manager. I'll show you. This is stuff we're doing. We're in real time working with people, big organizations and small ones, to move them off InfoPath and that's what we're working on. I can see we have a whole resource section here, and number of, let me get this right here, a number of infographics, data sheets, the ebook I just talked about, webinars we've done, blogs, and just really things that are of interest to the InfoPath replacement community, and we're big into it. So if you think of, we associate InfoPath replacement with Croquet software, that'd be really good move, because we can help you out a lot with it. So if you do get a chance, we're going to provide the slide deck or links to this information here to do it. Now, if you don't mind, I'd like to pop up a poll that's just asked simple question: what version of SharePoint are you using? And in that way, we can guide it, because there is, let me launch that poll right now. There is a little bit of difference between what's done for InfoPath replacement or Nitro Studio inside of the on-premises versus the SharePoint Online or Microsoft 365, I guess they call it now. So, and I believe it's a multiple choice. I mean, multiple. You can check more than one answer if you happen to have both environments in place. So we got about 2/3 of the people voted right so far. So a few more minutes if people want to take the time, but appreciate you any answers you can give on that. Okay, the results for me are showing here that it is approximately 2/3 on SharePoint Online, and another 2/3 are on 2016. So obviously those people chose both, and people do have both environments going, and we could discuss what is the best solution. We have Nitro Studio for both on premises. We have one's called Nitro Studio on premises, keeps all the data inside your farm, no connections to outside. Some people need that for government or regulatory healthcare reasons. They want to keep everything inside of their own farm and no calls out to the cloud, Azure. Of course, if you're in Office 365, you are inherently making calls to the outside environments, to cloud services. But some places can't have data go outside their firewall. So Nitro Studio, we used to call it secure, but now we call it Nitro Studio on premises, is well suited for that. But the truth is the one that's for Office 365 is pretty secure too, using all the latest features of Microsoft Office 365 security features when you're doing transit of data over the cloud to the cloud back and forth. So it is secure. It's just that some organizations are locked into using what only can stay in the farm. That's just a requirement of the regulation or whatever. Okay, let's talk a little about InfoPath. Thank you for that poll. It's very useful. And by the way, there are some still people on 2007 or 2010. We need to have a talk about getting off those, right? I'm sure you know that already. Okay, and get in touch, and we'll help you get off 2010 and whatever. Okay, let's go to InfoPath. Let's talk about InfoPath a little bit. InfoPath 2010 ended today, this month. Here we are, October 2020. I started this 3 years ago doing these webinars. October 2020 was way in the future, but here we are right now in it. That's it. Extended support's over for 2010. 2013, you got till next July for mainstream, and then to a few more years to go to extended. But that really doesn't mean much. All it means is it's following the life cycle of SharePoint 2016. That's what that is. That's the same dates for the life cycle of SharePoint 2016. And it does not mean that they're actively developing it. They're not doing anything more on it. And really, it's time to move off it. Time does move quickly, and it's going to be July 2021 before we know it, and then it's really time to move off this. So let's look at this time frame. This calendar I put up here just to show you how outdated InfoPath is. It was first developed just after the iPod came out. Take a look at this. It was before any cloud services like Amazon or Azure started, before the iPhone. And then it was ended development when Microsoft finally threw up its hands and said, look, the world's changing under our feet. We cannot keep up with it. It's just an old clunky technology that we have to move off of. And then Office 365 came into existence, and then of course our Nitro Studio is here also. So what happens is that this is when they stopped development on it in 2013. What is that, 7 years ago? Right, a long time ago. So they ended development in 2013, and they said 2.5 years ago now. This used to be a recent quote that I put on these slides. Now it's 2.5 years old. Now is the time. Oops. was trying to highlight now, but now is the time to start thinking about migrating. Well, yeah, now, if it wasn't, so let's do it. We are thinking about it. That's why we're having this webinar, and why hopefully it will lead to further discussions with our team about how to actually enact it. And this webinar will give you some guidance in that direction and start the conversation, or compel the transition along in waves. It's a good time right now, fall, winter coming, spring, let's start some projects, get it going, right? Here's the important thing, no new features are being added. And here's another thing, there's no guarantee that future enhancements to SharePoint and Office 365 won't knock InfoPath out of the loop. I wrote a whole blog on that. You can see on our research section, how long will InfoPath work on Office 365? And the question is, we don't know. I mean, they just suddenly stopped SharePoint 2010 workflows on Office. Microsoft suddenly stopped SharePoint 2010 workflows as of November, which is next month. They gave an announcement, I think in July, late July, early August, and a few months later, you're like, hey, that's it. And if you read my blog on it, it's on that resource page of InfoPath Replacement resource page. It says that Chris McNulty and others say, yeah, look, we make changes to Office 365 for our own self-interest, more or less. He said that, not quite literally, and what's necessary to keep Office 365 functioning efficiently. And if it bumps InfoPath off, we'll just give you enough warning, but it could happen before the 2026 date of extended support. So if you're on Office 365, you're on a little bit more precarious platform for when InfoPath may be ended, support for it may be ended. You just don't know. And hopefully they'll come out with an announcement that clarifies that in the near future. Okay, why did Microsoft deprecate InfoPath in 2013? There's many reasons, but I put 5 up here. One big one, not mobile friendly. Remember I said the iPhone came out, iPhone came out after InfoPath was first developed, and they just couldn't adjust it for the technology, because iPhones, of course, have changed enormously since they came out in 2006, and just couldn't keep up. The limited capability with latest browsers, that means like Edge and Chrome and everything keeps advancing, but the InfoPath is stuck back in the 2013 world. Outdated technology, no longer being developed, very critical, and it has difficulty connecting to other services and data sources. As those data services and other services evolve, InfoPath does not evolve with it. So the basic thing is, even if InfoPath was not being phased out, you still want to move off it. You're missing out on new technologies like what? Well, mobile, cloud, modern UI, portals, AI services. Mobile is very important. Modern UI is a responsive design, portals, AI services. You just missing out on a lot. And here I kind of sum it up a little bit here in the business processes can be enhanced, mobile options, responsive designs, modern UI, more involved in extensive database integration, portals that engage and allow multi-department interaction, AI services like chatbots and language processing. And I was kidding around with James earlier saying, yeah, look, I could still be driving a 72 Ford Pinto right now if I wanted, right? I mean, you could, but you would be missing out on all the latest security features like safety features like airbags and backup cameras and Bluetooth connection to your phone. I mean, just everything, so you can see there's a 2013 to 2020, and technology is like ancient times, So, so just to keep things moving along, as far as starting to give some advice here, we have this one rule that we call rule number 1, and I always joke in these conferences, like, well, that is the only rule, really. Stop creating the forms, darn it, because when you do, you're just going to have more and more work to do to transform them over. So that's, I know it's not always possible to do it. So I've ran into organizations, we just need this form, and we have to do it this month or something, and we can't wait. So, but if at all possible, stop creating them, because you're just going to make more trouble for yourself. Next question that comes up quite often: how do I get stuff from the old to the new, from InfoPath to, say, Nitro, if you're going to use Nitro Studio? And we examined these questions quite in thorough here, and looked at, there's basically 3 areas. Forms, how do you move the form itself, the UI of the form over? How do you move data over, and how do you do workflows? Well, here's how it works out. And I've got more extensive information on this and can talk to you about it if you have questions. But basically, the form of InfoPath is too idiosyncratic to InfoPath to move it over. It just does. We looked at it. We saw other people who tried it, and it turned out that when you do that kind of clunky transfer over, that they claim to have, it tends to be more work to revise the clunky kind of half-baked form that appears than to build it from scratch, especially with an easy tool like Nitro. Once you get the facility with it, it's like bada boom, bada boom, bada boom, easy. We also can replicate forms. If you build one form, you can replicate it from one site to the next, list in the sites to the next, same with our workflows, etc. So it's better to start fresh. The other point is if you use an old form and try just to use the old, the old junk in the new system, you're missing out on some changes you can make to the form with given the new features that are in it, responsive design or modern UI or different ways of doing things. So it's a real chance to update and refresh the process and the form. And people really have gotten used to kind of different interfaces now that we're in year 2020, not the year 2013. Big buttons, colorful things, whatever. So the forms have changed a lot. I would recommend, in my experience, just look at the old form and see what its functionality, but then translate it to the new system in a way that makes the most sense for the end users, and also incorporates new modern technologies that are possible now with tools like what we offer with Studio and all that. So data can be transferred. Whether you want to do it or not is another question. There are ways to extract the data into a database and then import that database into SharePoint. List, whatever, you can do it. There's a partner we have that we work with that can do that. But over the time, we've found that is it really worth it? You have to decide on what the workflow and the process are. That do you really need that old data in there? Something that happened in 2015 or something, or 2016. It's a question that you can offer. But if you do need it for archival purposes, you can put it into a database and leave it there. And that way get rid of the InfoPath form, but still have the data available. Sometimes the data is useful for historical reasons or analytics and reporting. Now, it depends on what you're doing. And if you need to talk about that more, we can. But workflows, we can say just, ain't gonna work, buddy. Because what happens is that the workflows are so particularly done inside of the SharePoint world that, inside of the InfoPath world, that it's just no way to extract it out and move it over. But again, it gives you the time to take a look at the workflow and maybe revise it, refresh it. You can look at it as a time of refreshing these business processes and renewing them. So how to transition over. Okay, this is a methodology we developed. It doesn't necessarily, if you only got like 2 forms to move, you don't necessarily have to go through this whole process, but the thought process is still very good. If you have hundreds of forms, we're working with people with hundreds and hundreds of forms, then you definitely do need some kind of a formalized process like this that works. And we'll go into how our InfoPath Replacement Manager is a tool that can facilitate that process, all right? So basically, always catalog the forms, know what you have, what forms have to be replaced, assess and analyze that catalog, eliminate the unnecessary ones. A lot of stuff has not been used, and you can get usage statistics when you do the exports of InfoPath forms. When you do the cataloging, you can get some statistics that show you that there is no reason to replicate this form because it's not being used. No one's looked at it for years. Of course, you don't want to replace that. And then you can look at the effort to replace the remaining forms, the forms that are going to be needed, which ones are high priority, which ones are critical, which ones are easy, slam dunk, low hanging fruit, get them done kind of thing, which ones are more complex and involve a lot of resource involvement to get it done, and testing and training and all that. Also, another thing we can do is look at alternatives. Maybe one of our, here, I'm from Crow Canyon, so I'm, tooting our horn a little here, but sometimes a pre-built application out of the box serves the purpose. You don't even have to replicate the form. So just look at one of those things from, a service desk or request management from Crow Canyon, and they'll fill the need without bothering to, replicate that InfoPath form and all the work involved with that. And then you implement the solution using a tool like what we have, Nitro Studio. Of course, there's others. We're in this market. There's many. I don't say many, but there's several other forms and workflow solutions, of course. And I'm promoting Nitro Studio because I'm from Crow Canyon, but basically you want to implement it in whatever tool you decide the one you want to use. Use Nitro Studio if it works for you and it's good and you got a comfort with it. There's certain people that just take to it like water to chocolate. Is that right? Anyway, they take to it and start to use it quite well, and it's really good. Start to join this community of people working in that direction. Okay, so catalog forms. How? You got to catalog them manually. If you just maybe you don't. You can just make a list and put it in a spreadsheet. But a more formal process is to go through this, run these PowerShell scripts, which we've done, and then you come out with an Excel spreadsheet that looks something like this. This is an example of an Excel spreadsheet listing the InfoPath forms, form name, last modified, doc count, project, all this information you're getting by running these PowerShell scripts. And then you take that and import it into our project manager. Now, here's the thing: we can provide these PowerShell scripts, and there's information on doing it, how to extract that information from InfoPath forms. The different servers react differently, so it might be something where we do a little consulting with you guys to get that list of forms out if you need to do that. But definitely you want to know what you have before you start the project, if you have a lot of them that you can't manually catalog, right? So then we go into you can build a catalog using spreadsheets, project manager tool, but then we just said, look, we're just going to put make a version of our project manager that does the trick, because it was like so obvious that our project manager could take in that information from the spreadsheet and then give a way to look at the different forms. So what it does is blah, blah, blah here, but I can show you it in real time. And in order to go over here, here's the project manager. So this InfoPath Replacement Manager we're using, it's using Nitro Studio, different ways to brand it, to show the list and everything else. But basically all those forms that were in the spreadsheet were imported in. Let's take a look at one of them. Each row in that spreadsheet that represents an InfoPath form was imported into this project manager tool, right? Makes sense? I hope. And so this is arranged, of course, using Nitro Studio with our tabs and different custom actions and everything and associated tasks. So it's basically based on our project manager tool. You got a project name of converting this treasury payment form. What's the client or department that is associated with? Is there is this like a repetitive project? Maybe you're doing several Nitro forms that are the same. Is involved budget? Now you can modify this project manager, and we can work with you using our Nitro Studio, right? Of course. And then what's the status? Who's managing it? Start, end date. Then you have sub projects like a review form, get feedback from accounting department, propose new mock-ups, etc. Those are all just project management type things that whatever is particular to your process and your organization, this tool can be adapted. But what's interesting here is you can also go to the InfoPath form details, get information that was imported from the spreadsheet, and now you got a form name, used by finance, a responsible party, approvers, and all this stuff about the InfoPath that was imported in. You can have images, and you could have here we go. Let's see if it has this image here. So you can see what the old form looked like. Well, that's the travel expense. I didn't put the treasury one with this for this demo, but you normally would have the treasury payment form here, and then you can have the new form looking like this, so people can do the comparison and related things like milestones, tasks, all tasks that are associated with this particular form replacement activity, right? So here we go with this. Now, if I go to edit, you can use the notes, this field on the notes on workflow to put in a diagram or some kind of thing that talks about, user creates form, goes to manager, whatever you want to do, manager decides, anyways, this kind of thing. Or you can do a graphical like a Visio or something, just paste it in here and make it so that there's notes on the workflow also. And then also there's a question about do you need to migrate data, and that migrate data could become a subtask of the project. So many ways you can use this tool to really facilitate the organization and efficiency of moving off InfoPath and into whatever solution. Now we of course are going to be promoting Nitro Studio as the solution, but even if you're using a different solution, you could still use our InfoPath project manager to manage the project. You get this stuff from PowerShell, the list of InfoPath forms, you import it in to this, maybe modify this a bit and get going. So for example, just to play around a little, I'll show you this travel request form. And I'll show you some stuff here. And it did have form images here. It's a travel because this is what the InfoPath form looked like, right? And then you go back to the here and look what the Nitro form looks like. Yeah, so just an example for a demo that you can get both going at the same time. Now, if you go to our Nitro Studio for this project, this is the InfoPath Replacement Manager, and you go to the form, and you may have other needs you want to do here. This is going a little bit into the Nitro Studio. We'll get back to the whole transitioning thing, but I want to show you some of this while I'm in here. projects. We're talking about projects. Go. So it's going to do the form for the project. Coming up with the forms designer here. This uses the same form for new, edit, and display modes. Every SharePoint form has new, edit, and display modes. This is using it for the one form for all three. So what if I wanted to do something like this? And now, if you want to know how to use our form designer, there's a lot we can show you, a lot of information, videos. I'll just run through a few things just to kind of like, I guess, razzle dazzle a little. I don't know. Anyway, I'm going to add a form here. I mean, a tab here. I'm going to call the tab training requirements or training. You just call it training. You're going to be number of columns 1, horizontal position. Okay, start with that. Here it is. And then we say, well, we want to say, we want to create a column on here and add it on. We said training required over here. So if training is required, we're going to show this tab, and then the training is going to be, let's say, let's create a column called, training, like who needs training. So training, let's go start training manager. Let's call it, right? Who's gonna manage the training? You guys can. I'm just kind of doing on the fly and whatever. But let's go here and say there's a training manager. Anybody, could be any person. Don't add it to the view. So you can create columns right in from this form designer, and then as soon as you create it, you have it over here. The training manager can pop it onto the form here, and there it is, like a training manager now, because you added training on here. Then you can do other things like who needs to be training. So you could say, okay, training is for training, whatever you want to call it, is for our group that needs training. I don't know, there's people there, and that could be a person or a group. Maybe there's a group of people you want to put in, groups, something like that, right? And then that can go on, and now you have the training is for over here. And I don't know, you can go on and on with this, like how you want to add on different fields. But for training, you could even do things like put in a table, and this gets a little more complex, but you could put it like, and this could be like training date. So let's just do a little here, if you can indulge me a little here to get this right. So we're going to put in training date, something like that. So we got starting getting a header here going, training date. And you can make that bold, center it, make it larger. Let's see, 18 sounds good. And even in the HTML, you come in here and get rid of the border. You could also import HTML if you wanted. So there you go, and apply that. It's like training date. So then you can have another field here for create a column called training date. Date. Let's call it training date. You realize I'm just making this up as I go. I did think about it a little bit, but I don't know what your training needs are. But we could put in here like training date, just to give you an example of how cool Nitro is and how easy it is to work with this stuff. So then you go training date right here, but here you go. You don't want all that over here, all this label over here, because it says it up above. So just go over here and say hide, don't show the column label. And now it takes up that. If you want this field larger, you could do as far as how wide you want that field to be in there. You can make the cell. Maybe you want to make the cells up here. Come back here. Cell properties of this one. You want to make a different color on the background. You might make this like a slight yellow color or something if you want it. I don't know. Okay, so and then you could go in and go back to this one and go to HTML and just copy all this stuff. Copy and go here, add another line HTML here, and then you go here and copy that stuff back. And see, we try and make it as easy as possible. It's and then you go here and my training location, let's call it, right? Something like that. Usually remote these days, right? So there it goes, and now we have training location up there, and we can make the background the same color right here, and make it the same color. And, you get going like that, right? And then you could have another training location. You can see I could build this whole table. I could move these fields like this, make it larger. I can insert another column if I wanted. Columns to the right here, and see, it's really a lot you can do. I mean, I'm just scratching the surface, kind of give you a little bit of wow, a wow feeling about this. I hope that you can do so much with this to make it look really cool. So let's go, let's do one other thing before we publish this. And of course, and I'd fill all this more out. I don't want to take up the whole webinar doing this, but what I can do here is go here to training required, and I can go to permissions, and I could say, let's go here and show the training tab. And you want to show it when the condition is training required is yes, right? Yes, 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 yes. And then you want to hide it. Hide a training tab. Hide training tab. Goodbye, training tab. Don't need you anymore. Okay, training tab. When is equal, not equal to yes, right? Okay, or C if you're Spanish, or we if you're French, I guess. Whatever. So here we go. Confirm. We're going to publish it. Oh, and you can make a note there. I don't know if you noticed. You can make a note there that says, you know, we added training to this form or something like that. So here we go. Now, here we go in a demo. Did it make the change or not? Everybody's waiting with tense breath, I'm sure. Did it do it or not? I don't know. Let's find out. I added a training tab, remember? Yeah, what's going on here? Is training checked already? Yes. No, wait a minute. Okay. Okay, this is the, let me refresh that. Refresh yourself. Unless I did something funky there. So let's go look at this. Okay. Training showing up like that, like it was. Something went a little funny there, but it's, let me see what I did wrong here. This is all right. Training here, training month day. Form has this on it, training required. This is called the demo gremlins. So I'm going to go here and publish this again. Maybe something didn't go make sense when I published it. Yes. Everybody does it demos or webinars, you know, experience this kind of thing. But it will. I'm not worried. It'll get worked. It'll get working. Let's try it again. Okay, so we go to InfoPath form details. See, this is funny that training is, oh. Brilliant that I am. Brilliant person that I am. I just did the wrong thing. We didn't, okay. This is where I want the permissions, not there. I want the permissions on here, not on the training. My mistake. Hey, I don't do this all the time. I only do this during webinars, training tab. Now you want to show the training tab when the condition is training required. Yeah, that didn't make sense to do it on there. So let's do yes, okay? And then we'll go here to edit again and hide it. I got a lot on my mind with this demo. So, you know, I mean, this webinar, and I'm trying to just show you some cool features. And excuse me if I just kind of like did things a little bit backwards there. So, okay, so the thing is, the tab is where you put the permissions, not on the tab, applying continue, not on this here. This one should not have any permissions on it. Let's make sure they're off there. Take this off. It's easy to change stuff. I did this to show you how easy it is to fix things, right? So there you go. There we go. Now we're good. What I was doing in the previous iteration of the mistake I made was putting the permissions on this, not on the tab. My mistake was I should have put the permissions on the tab, and that's just a minor league, you know, junior league kind of error there that I made. Well, oh well. Hey, I'm the CEO and the president. I don't do this all day long, you know. Just get these demos. All right, so where were we? Back on projects, and now it should work. Yeah. See how there's no. Let's go to edit. There's no training tab. No training tab until I go here and click training required. Now training shows up, right? With our, you know, beginnings of our table, you could say. Now if I go here to training not required, it doesn't show up. little interesting trick you can do there to make dynamic forms like that and only show it information you have to. So I'm just saying you could like rapidly extend this to be a really fully featured project management tool for your InfoPath replacement going on there. So when you get the import from the PowerShell, you put it into the project manager. You can adjust this form using our Nitro Studio, just like the simple things I just did. You could also go in and add on custom actions if you want, that are the buttons at the top. Let me go back and look at the form and see if there's any custom actions on here. One is update form, or print. You could print it out. You could do all kinds of interesting things with the custom actions. And also you can have workflows run so that when the project, start date happens, notify people. When the due date happens, notify people. When the milestones are being reached, notify people, or kick off certain processes and other things that go on with Nitro Studio, and being able to manage the project management, the form and the workflows and the actions inside the project management tool. Now, I'm showing you this project management tool using Nitro as an example of how you can modify it, but of course you could take any form and modify it. If you start building an InfoPath Reform replacement item, like our access request we have going here, here's the access request, and you might be building it to look like whatever you want your form to look like. Start building tables. I think I was doing some tables over here or one of these places last time. There's a Oracle information. Here's a table right here on Oracle information, showing you the kind of setup you can have, and not completely done, but just showing you that you start to build tables. You can have related tasks. There's so much cool stuff you can do with this, including connecting to external databases and everything else. So this is when you would take, like, say you have an access request form in InfoPath and you want to replicate it in here. You do all kinds of cool stuff of making it work the way you want. And here's another thing about preview. You can look here and say, how does it look on the desktop? How does it look on a tablet? And how does it look on a mobile device? And then adjust it accordingly, make the changes right there in real time. And you saw when I was doing the project management tool that I was adding columns left and right, making changes to it, publishing it, and it appears in real time. So it's very easy to make these kind of changes and fixes to the form to make it look like the InfoPath replacement that tool that you want to replace, right? Put in the workflows and everything else, and go from there with it. So what are we doing here? We're doing access request. Pretty cool little system. We have workflows running here that will notify the manager when someone makes the access request. The manager will approve or deny it. And then if it's approved, they'll go and create another set of tasks for whoever's the DBA to grant the actual permissions. When the DBA grants the actual permissions, it will then go and inform the end user and possibly send them the login information if that's appropriate to send an email or somehow deliver that to him or her. And that will be the whole workflow. Now I can't really show you the workflow per se on this because it's it happens behind the scenes. There's in our Nitro Studio is a workflow manager right here that you put some of these workflows together and they will take certain actions. We could look at what's going on there with the workflow manager and show many powerful capabilities of the workflow manager and the action. So the forms are the UI, the way data is conveyed and talked about, and the workflows are the way that the data is acted on and the process goes forward and moves forward with the whatever you need done according to whatever that InfoPath form did, or how you can improve it with more modern technologies. Then you send it over to the what's going on with this works a little slow here on the workflow loading. It's loading the workflows for this access request site. This is a demo environment where we have a lot of activity going on, with demos and programming and stuff like that. So that should show up. While that's showing up, I'll just look at the other things we have going on in our Nitro Studio. We have reports. We have portals. You can build a portal for people to engage with the system. I could show you some portals. Here's a portal, for example, employee request portal. So people come here. This is part of Nitro Studio. You can build a portal where people just make an access request right from some kind of cool looking screen with your logo and your colors on it, if you like. You can also make kind of this is more of a kiddie land one, but you can make it something like this. Or you can make it something that's more of a modern UI look. This is all the same portal. It's just different ways of manifesting it and what you want to put together. And this is another kind of portal using modern UI and having a Twitter feed and a weather feed and other things just to show you what's possible here. This is our Twitter feed, by the way, right here. Put here onto this portal. So, Excel is not a database. What else we have going on here? Anyway, so this is a portal that you can make so people don't have to go to the backend SharePoint and get a leave request or an access request. They can just go to this portal, whether it's a kid-friendly one or whether it's a more corporate-looking one or something. Whatever you want to do in these portals, you can do, and that's what our portal designer is all about here in Nitro Studio. You can do many other capabilities of adjusting how the program works. We have the formatting, the actions, managing emails, linking items together, have different kinds of ways of showing lists, searching lists, viewing lists, and print manager and tiles and dials. Now, if you're over in Office 365, you can start taking advantage of our bots and AI services, modern UI web parts, and our full-fledged Teams integration. And those are things, if you're in Office 365, you definitely want to take a look at, especially our Teams integration. And if I don't think I have much time in this webinar, with like 15 minutes left or so, to go into the Teams integration and the bots, which are really cool things going on to show how inside of Teams you can be doing a lot of business processes like approvals and everything. Like, boy, that is something I'd love to show right now, and I don't have that up. Well, I can get, let me finish some of what I'm doing here. Let's see the workflows. Here's some workflow. So we can go to let's look at this existing workflow here just to show you the kind of actions you can do in our workflow. So we have the forms, which I'm showing you can manipulate, you can put tabs, you can put new fields on, you can make dynamic, you can have associated items, user info, and many things you can do with those forms to make them full replacements of Nitro Studio with the InfoPath replacements, and not only replacements, but also advancements. And then when you start to put workflows together, you can put any kind of these actions going on to go on. I mean, multiple ones going on. We got one where it's notifying the staff, update the response to, assign to DBA, create an Oracle task, send card to SQL Manager. All these things going on as part of the workflow when the item's created. This is an item creation workflow for our Access Request Manager, doing all these things automatically because of what we put into the workflow manager when the form is created. So someone creates a new access request and looking at all, it can notify people, update when a response is due, assign it to a DBA, and many things. So these are all based on these kind of actions right here, where you add a list item, update a list item, delete a list item, send an email or notification, move it, query it. You can manage permissions, evoke workflows, including Power, what do they call it now? Power Automate or SharePoint workflows, as well as Crow Canyon workflows. You can invoke web services, calling REST APIs. And if you have Teams and you're in Office 365, you can actually create a channel, send email to a channel, or post an adaptive card in Teams. So when you start to put the power of all these different actions together in the workflow manager, you're becoming like full automation of this business process in ways that are, really make things more efficient and operationally effective, there in your work. So the InfoPath replacement becomes a very interesting project because you're building this form and then you're doing these workflows and you're getting really creative about how these actions can help. Well, ultimately you want to help the organization and help your end users do things better, right? So when they create an access request, or they create a service desk ticket, or they create a purchase order, or they create a contract management requirement or HR request, whatever kind of process you're automating, the forms that were previously in InfoPath and kind of clunky and outdated now become modern forms that are have great UIs, have ability to run workflows available on mobile, and very easy to modify using this tools that we provide inside the Nitro Studio. It's works out really well. It's really cool. So we were actually in the middle of this slideshow before I segued into all this other stuff, and so let's go back to that. And we were cataloging the forms. We got through cataloging the InfoPath Replacement Manager. Then, well, like I say, once you have the catalog of that InfoPath Replacement Manager that we we're just looking at, you can go in there and assess and analyze. Hey, we don't need to make this form over. We need to adjust it, change the workflow. You want to analyze the form's term efforts, resources necessary for successful deployment. So looking again at our InfoPath Replacement Manager here, the projects, when you open one of these up, and you can do this on spreadsheets, you could do it on paper even if you want, but we have this available, because we found it really helps with our work, and we adjust it, according to the organization's needs and how they want to work. It really depends on how big it is, how many people are involved, how many forms are involved. whether it's a one-person operation or a whole team has to interact together to make this happen. It's really, this project manager can be tweaked according to that. You can see right here, it's talking about estimated effort and things like that to keep it all aligned with the same, methodology that we have here of analyzing and assessing the catalog, determine time and effort, determine which ones don't need to be replicated, and then putting together a plan to get it done. Now, I talked earlier about the time running out of, July 2020, 2021. It's not going to happen in a day, so the time to start is October 2020, like, tomorrow, today, this afternoon. Give us a call and we'll talk. I mean, this is something we do all day long and get really excited about and interested in how to get the, not just InfoPath forms, but access, even paper processes or Lotus Notes, anything that's old legacy, even SharePoint designer workflows we're doing a lot with because Microsoft's closing the book on SharePoint 2010 and soon on 2013 ones on Office 365. So people are knocking on our door saying, hey, what do we do now? And how do we get off that? So when you assess and analyze, you want to look at factors: how complex is the form, how critical is it, how many customizations and modifications, enhancements does it need? So when you look at the form, the InfoPath form, you're giving it like a little bit of a once over, saying like, well, okay, this is really critical form, and we got to get a lot of attention. This other form is like, it's kind of light, they're just ordering, sandwiches at the cafeteria or something. Who cares? I don't know if you actually have a form like that, but if you have an inside cafeteria, you can have a form that says you want to get a bologna sandwich or something like that, and would you want mayonnaise and lettuce on? I actually don't know if any organization actually has a form, InfoPath form like that, but it wouldn't be a bad idea. And maybe I'm getting towards lunch, so I'm getting hungry here or something. But the point is, it's only like almost noon here in California. But I'm thinking about, ridiculously easy forms, and then there's very complex ones that involve a lot of integrating factors that are quite require a lot of thought and analysis. Here's what I mentioned earlier about replacing it with an existing one we already have. Why reinvent the wheel? We've done this for years. These are in use many organizations around the world, and we have a lot of use of our applications. And they're based on the Nitro Studio, like I said. So if you had a help desk, a service desk, or something like that, and you wanted to tweak the form, tweak the workflow, no problem. Just go into Nitro Studio and bada bing, you do it. Nitro Studio is sold in two ways, just because I know that question will come up. Is that there is the one site model, which is the application. It's like one silo. It's kind of a vertical silo of this. I'm waving my hands up and down saying this vertical silo like this. And then the other is the tenant or farm wide, which is, my hands are going sideways now, saying spread out through the whole farm, as many sites as you want, create as many as you want. So if you go with the Nitro Studio for the tenant, you can create as many forms and workflows and many sites as you want throughout your whole tenant or farm. If you go with the horizontal, where you want this one application, then you can use Nitro Studio within that application, within that site, to do whatever heck you want with it, to create the form, workflows, and email management, et cetera, within that one site. So, it's something, again, we could discuss. Let's get in touch and talk about it as I go through this. Using a pre-built application could save substantial time and effort. We've seen that numerous times, where just putting something in we already have obviates the need for an InfoPath form replacement project altogether. So there we go. Then you implement the new solution. You get all this goodness, let's say, all the goodness of a new solution with the modern, and everybody's happy, hopefully, at the end of it all, and you're onto a new way of doing business that's effective. Now, there is a lot of considerations about organizational inertia, about a resistance of change, about, well, we did it that way, we have to do it this, this kind of stuff. So, I know there's a lot of social issues, and not just selling software. We also have to deal with the social issues of implementation and user adoption. Now, before I get off the webinar, I do want to mention one other thing that is like, for Office 365, Microsoft 365 people, not for on-premises. On-premises, Nitro Studio on-premises is like a great tool to have there to do your forms and workflow development. There's no question it's something you should gotta look at seriously as a way to replace InfoPath forms and give your team a way to build forms and workflow. Now, but on Office 365, we have this thing called Power Platform from Microsoft, which is obviously a serious thing you have to look at seriously and say, how does this fit into the whole scenario? They have forms, workflows, and analytics. And the way we work with them, work with Microsoft's Power Platform, is that we work in conjunction. We can use their Power Apps forms and put it data into our system if that's some kind of appropriate for some kind of particular purpose where they work well. Um, most of the time people just go with the Nitro Studio forms, but if someone's beholden to Power Apps for some reason, we can take that data and take that form and utilize. We can instantiate a Power Automate or flows from within our own workflow manager. So we can just call up instantiate as they call it, a workflow in the Power Automate. And so, there isn't like one or the other. If you need to go into the Power Platform, you can, and work in conjunction with Nitro Studio. The only thing you have to watch out for are the limits and considerations. I did a whole webinar on this back in April. It does not include premium connectors, such as the SQL as a premium connector to the SQL Server. Though on-premises connectivity, if you're, like I said, if you're on-premises, go with Nitro Studio on-premises. Don't even think about Power Platform. Doesn't exist unless with these gateways that cost money and all this nightmare of complexity. So Power Apps in Office 365 does not include the portal. You start with kind of limited features, and it's daily request limits, et cetera, et cetera. And these are details, a little late in the webinar to go deep into it, but I do want to point out that Microsoft itself in their licensing guide from last January, customers that need general purpose and full capabilities of the platform should license Power Apps on a standalone basis, and also the same thing for Power Automate licenses. And so to use all Power Apps and all Power Automate capabilities, you're going to be shelling out some dough here, because the point is it's like $10 per user per month, $40 per user per month. Do the math, right? You end up 100 users, 4,000 a month, right? So you're starting to pay for this. Now, if you want to question or you challenge me on all this, I'm all for it. And I did a really deep study last spring on the whole thing on it. In fact, did a webinar here, limitation and cost of Microsoft's Power Platform. Really interesting. I found a lot out, and I'm glad to share any of that information about the true cost and limitations of it. I'm not saying it's not a great platform to use. I just think that if you are going to go whole hog in Power Platform, say, well, I don't need anything else to go with Microsoft offers here. It's just a word of caution. Check it out. Check out my webinar. Give me a call. We'll talk it out, and maybe it will be the right fit for you. But you do have to consider the limitations and costs of using it. And that involves support. Our support is excellent. Get support from Microsoft. Well, it's a $1 trillion organization, right? Hard to get in and find the kind of information you need sometimes, And also they just are, it's how you want to work. You work with us, us, people. We respond. We have support. We're here for you, right? And we want you to be successful with your InfoPath replacement or other kinds of forms and workflow solutions. What else we got going here? And Nitro Studio replace InfoPath. I think I covered that a lot. We're almost at the top of the hour, so I could go on and on about Nitro Studio. It's so cool product, but what I want to encourage you to do is get in touch with us, get a demo going, find out, and give us at least a good look, good consideration. I know there's other tools out there, but we are deep into this. Neck deep is what we do. We want you to be successful, and we have many, many capabilities in our forms, in our workflows, in our Nitro Studio. It's expanding, and I didn't even get a chance to show you all the bots. If you don't want to know bots, okay, there's one coming up in November, but James is going to be talking next, Wednesday, about the deep dive into Nitro Forms. You can see more details on that. We just did a webinar a week or two ago on healthcare improvements. That's up on the web. Now we're going to do one in this month on government service improvements with using Teams, Office 365, and SharePoint. And I'll be doing one on accelerate your service desk with bots for Microsoft Teams. The bots are really cool, really, really, really great stuff. Shows up in Teams. I wish I had time in this webinar to show you, but I don't. But if you do want to see our bots, get in touch. I just really like showing them. It's fun. The bots are fun to work with, fun to show, fun to get you interested in what the bots can do and how they work. Just a quick glance, there's a bot going right here. Hi, what can I do? How are you? Hello, this kind of stuff. And the bots are running right here in Teams. As you can see, we have a staff support bot, we got our self-service bot, we've got the Nitro bot, we've got I was working with the Microsoft Healthcare bot, for example. So all right, so James, I don't see any questions. I think we're good on the questions, right? And
yep. Yeah, so far.
Okay. All right, so you can see that we have a lot of upcoming webinars. Let me get back to the screen here. Upcoming webinars. webinars, should have an S here, upcoming webinars and things we're doing here with this. Stay in touch with our website, and we'll be sending out emails. Follow us on Twitter, LinkedIn, whatever. If you're in InfoPath replacement or any kind of legacy forms replacement, we're glad to help you out, glad to give information and give you the guidance and experience that we have gained over the last years with this this tool, this projects of replacing InfoPath, etc. All right, thank you everyone for attending. It's top of the hour, and we'll be sending out a recording of it, and I think we'll do a slide share and also email. So, need a demo or anything like that or more detail, glad to help. All right, thanks, Jane, for helping. Thank you, everyone, for attending, and have a good day. Thank you. Okay, bye-bye.